Okay, so good afternoon, students. Let's proceed with module 3. We had started with optical sources, so I'll quickly recap what we had done in the last two classes. So we have spoken about the LED and the laser, what is the difference between the two in general. Then we looked at the LED's light not being coherent or incoherent, whereas laser being coherent. We have also discussed why that is true. In the laser there will also be a light amplification. We still have to see how that happens, but that will be the case there. Laser is going to be very selective in terms of the wavelength where it operates, whereas LED is not that selective, but usually LED we used in the lower wavelength range. Okay, then we discussed about this valence conduction band and what is the idea of band gap, and we looked at the three processes: absorption, spontaneous emission, and stimulated emission. So absorption and spontaneous emission is the processes through which LED is going to operate, whereas absorption, spontaneous, and stimulated emission are the processes through which the laser will be operating. In band gap, we have looked at direct and indirect band gap, and we saw how momentum and energy is going to be related. And in general, we always use the direct band gap, those kind of materials. Then we started with LED in the last lecture, and we discussed that LEDs should give us very high brightness or radiance, very fast emission response time, and high quantum efficiency. We still have to discuss what that is. I've just given you an overview of the quantum efficiency. They work with the LEDs will work with what is known as carrier confinement. That is, all the carriers should be confined in a region which is known as the active region. And to do that, we could use what is known as the homojunction, or what are known as the single or double heterojunction structure, which is having different alloys together. The types of the LEDs specified in your syllabus are surface emitting and edge emitting. So last lecture we looked at a cross section of double heterostructure. So here this is also there in the notes which I have provided. This is also known as the sandwich structure, and you can see in the active region we'll be able to confine the carriers there, and how the injected electrons will be converted into the corresponding light. And we have taken an example of the LED working at about 820 nanometer. But the problem here is the light is not going to be directional. It follows what is known as the Lambertian pattern. Lambertian pattern, where with distance the light is going to spread out. So we discussed that in detail. Then we looked at the types of LEDs. So I'm not going to go into the detail of that. It's more theoretical, but I've shown the diagrams here of the front emitter or the surface emitter and the edge emitter, and what is the difference between the two. And lastly, we discussed the light source materials. We have not gone deep into the chemistry aspect, but what are the different alloys that we can mix, the ternary and the quaternary. Then the last part, what we did was we started with quantum efficiency and power, and we want to derive the internal quantum efficiency, and we defined this internal quantum efficiency as the ratio of radiative recombination to the total recombination. That means the total recombination of the carriers which will happen, some of it will be radiative and some of it will be non-radiative. So by radiative we mean getting light out of it. So we expect maximum of it to be radiative. If it is 100%, then that is great, but some of it will be non-radiative. So we want to calculate that. We want to find a mathematical equation for that. So we just started with it, and we have come to the equation for total rate of the carriers, which is there in the bracket here. And for equilibrium, n should be equal to j tau by qd, where we have defined these parameters. So this is what we have done with respect to LEDs till now. Now let us look at the quantum efficiency of the LEDs, and then we can also then have the power derived for the LED, right? So the we have already defined the internal quantum efficiency. This usually occurs, this is going to occur in the active region. So we are only worried about the active region of the LED, and this is defined as the fraction of electron holes that recombine radiatively, right? So I'll just define that here: fraction of electron holes which recombine radiatively, right? So we are not really interested in the ones which do not recombine radiatively, because that is not going to generate light, right? So from the previous derivation that we have done, I'll just write the final result. So n was J tau divided by QD, right? Where J is the current density, Q is the electron charge, D is the thickness of that region where recombination occurs, and N is the injected electrons. We have taken N naught as the initial electron density, and tau is the lifetime of the carriers. That means how much, how long these carriers are going to exist, right? So now today we are going to derive the internal quantum efficiency. So we are going to make use of that result which is present in the bracket, the one that I'm starting. So internal quantum efficiency, I'll write in short QE, right? So internal quantum efficiency, the definition, I'll spell that again, and then we'll write that mathematically. So it is nothing but the fraction of electron hole pairs that recombine radiatively. That means the internal quantum efficiency, which is eta, and in subscript I and T, is nothing but the radiative recombination RR divided by RR, which is radiative recombination, plus radiative non-recombination, right? So this the denominator is the total recombination, whereas the numerator is only the radiative recombination, right? So we'll call this equation 1 here, right? Now we have seen that there is an exponential decay as you inject the electrons. So for exponential decay, of carriers, right? For exponential decay of carriers, radiative. So note here we are only interested in the radiative recombination. Radiative recombination lifetime is, so we'll call that lifetime as tau, as we have defined previously. So tau r is n, which is the injected number of electrons, divided by r, right? So where r, the denominator, it is nothing but number of recombinations, number of radiative recombinations, and n is the electron density, right? We'll call this equation 2. Okay, n is the, just for reference again, n is the electron or charge density. Charge density. Okay. So this is about recombination lifetime. Similarly, non-radiative recombination lifetime. So we can also define this, and we'll call this some tau nr, and this will be nothing but similarly to equation 2, n divided by r n r, right? And let us call this equation 3. So now let's put equation 2 and 3 into equation 1, right? So with equation 2 and 3, we can write eta internal, which is RR divided by RR plus RNR. I'm rewriting equation 1 for reference, and now we'll put in equation 2 and 3 into equation 1, right? So now substituting that RR, right, from equation 2 is n divided by tau r, and again you'll have n divided by tau r, plus RNR from equation 3 is n divided by tau nr, right? You can adjust this equation and get rid of the n in numerator denominator because it's common. So this will just be 1 by tau r divided by 1 by tau r plus 1 divided by tau n r, Let us call this equation 4. If total recombination lifetime, right, that means the charges are there for the entire recombination period, and this will define as 1 by tau, which is 1 by tau r plus 1 by tau n r. Call this equation 5. If that is the case, under that assumption, then your equation 4, so let me scroll up for reference equation, then equation 4 because of equation 5 becomes internal quantum efficiency will be 1 by tau r, which is the numerator, right? Now 1 by tau r plus 1 by tau n r in equation 5 is just nothing but 1 by tau. So I'll just replace the denominator with 1 by tau, right? Therefore, finally, internal quantum efficiency just becomes tau divided by tau r. Tau divided by tau r. Let us call this equation 6. Right? In general, eta internal is 50% for homojunction LED, and this will be around 60 to 80% for double heterojunction LED. So that's why the double heterojunction is preferred, because you can internal quantum efficiency will be higher. Okay, now we can move ahead. That equation number 6 is very important, so that will be used for numericals. Okay, now we can move ahead and try to find the power. Okay, so to find the power, so now here we are trying to find the power. Okay, LED power. So we'll make use of equation 6, okay, to find the power. So for this, let's say if injected current into the LED is denoted as I, right? If we denote this current as I, right? Now RR plus R and R, the radiative recombination, will be nothing but I, which is the current, divided by Q, right? How does this come? Because you have Q equal to IT, right? Charge quantity is nothing but amount of charge flow over a time, right? So I'm just writing the number of recombinations per unit time. So 1 by tau just becomes R, right? So let me do this on the side here. So I'm just doing this, that 1 by tau will become R in that case, right? Therefore 1 by tau R plus 1 by tau n R, 1 by tau R plus 1 by tau n R will just become RR plus RN, just using that equation, right? Therefore the total recombination, that is the one for radiative as well as non-radiative, will just be I divided by Q, right? So now we'll use the equation for internal quantum efficiency, which will be nothing but RR divided by the total RR plus RNR. So instead of that, I'm substituting I divided by Q, right? Therefore, from here we can get or rewrite RR as eta I and T into I divided by Q, right? Now let's multiply this equation, that is this equation. Let me bracket this. This is also an important equation, but this is not the final result. Let's multiply both sides of this by HF or H nu. Okay, so here we'll be interchangeably using E equal to H nu or E equal to HF. They both are one and the same, right? So multiplying both the sides, right, with HF or H nu, right? So I'll be using HF, right, multiplying both the sides. So you have eta int into I divided by Q into HF. Right now, this is LHS is nothing but radiative recombination into the energy, right? E equal to HF. Now that is nothing but power. That is nothing but power. So we are going to denote this as power, but internal power, and this is nothing but eta int into I divided by Q into HF, which can also be written as eta int, right, into, now we can write this in the terms of wavelength as I can write F as C by lambda. So you have HIC divided by lambda into Q. So your final equation for internal power is eta int. So you will need the internal quantum efficiency to calculate the power into HCI divided by Q lambda. This is the final equation there, right? So the value of H here will be 6.6 into 10 raised to negative 34 joules per second. C will be 3 into 10 raised to 8, and Q will be 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19. Right? Here we'll have to be a little careful that not all internally generated photons will be available from output of the device. Right? So there can also be an external efficiency which we can calculate, right? So the external quantum efficiency, right, because all of this will not be available at the output, that's why, right? So the external quantum efficiency, it is nothing but ratio of photons emitted from LED to number of photons generated internally. So how many photons are generated internally? You know, all of that should be converted into the photons outside, but that's not going to happen. So we are going to have external quantum efficiency, right? So we're not going to derive this, but we can use just the equations which have been found using experiments. So eta external, usually I have not seen numericals on external quantum efficiency. It's only internal which is important. This is given as 1 by n into n plus 1 the whole square, right, where n is the refractive index, and corresponding power which we can write as external power will be eta external into internal power, right? So this will be internal power which we have calculated before divided by n into n plus 1 the whole square, right? So to calculate the external power of the LED, complete external power, we need to know the refractive index, right, which is used. So you must be wondering, what is this refractive index? Where does that come into the picture? This we'll discuss when we talk about the laser. You'll see that this active region, the cavity, is supposed to have a particular refractive index. Okay, and based on that, then we can calculate the external power. Okay, so there are numericals based on that. But before that, before going into those numericals, let us discuss an important concept of what is known as modulation of LED. Modulation of LED. Okay. So I have been explaining modulation quite a lot, what exactly it is. So modulation is nothing but change. Okay, in general, it means there is a change in something. Right? For our case, that is communication, modulation implies that we are changing the frequency of a particular signal. In general, changing the frequency of the baseband signal or the data signal, because it has very less frequency, hence it has very less bandwidth, and we always want to operate with higher bandwidth for our applications. So you take a high frequency carrier, superimpose the baseband or the data signal on that, and the frequency will increase, and hence the carrier the bandwidth is also going to increase. You do the opposite at the you know the receiver part, where we go in for the demodulation, right? So that is the idea of doing the modulation, right? But whatever modulation we have done or we have understood, all that modulation is only in terms of the signal being electrical signals. We have not spoken about uh, whether we'll be able to modulate, light. Can we do it directly? Is it possible to increase the frequency, or what is the nature when it comes to doing it with light? So because ultimately your LED or the laser is going to convert the electrical signal into the corresponding light signal, and we need to modulate that, right? Because the frequency there is just going to be the same as what we have used for uh, you know for the baseband signal. So there has to be some method by which we should be able to modulate this light signal, right? Because that is going to be the output of the LED and the laser as well, right? So that's where the concept of modulation of the LED comes into the picture, because here we are going to directly modulate the light, right? But then we are not interested in the light signal as well, because ultimately at the receiver we only need to get the electrical signal back, right? So there has to be some relation. There has to be some relation between uh, electrical signal and the light signal. There has to be some relation there, right? So what could be this relation that we want to see? What could be this relation we want to see that, right? So that is where the whole idea of or the concept of modulation of the LED and the modulation of the laser later on will come. Okay, so we are more interested in calculating modulation bandwidth. We are more interested in calculating modulation bandwidth, because ultimately after the modulation we are only going to increase the bandwidth of the signal. So we are interested in calculating the bandwidth of how this modulates. Okay, so we need to define this modulation bandwidth in optical communication. uh, you can define this modulation bandwidth either in electrical terms, right? So let me make it a little clear. You can define this modulation bandwidth either in electrical terms, or you could do this in optical terms, and obviously there has to be a relation between the two, right? But it is more useful when we consider electrical circuit or electrical definition, because our signals are only electrical in nature, right? So we are going to use the electrical definition, and here with the electrical definition, you must know from subjects in third semester and where you have dealt with electronics, we are always interested in where the electrical signal, here let me make it specific, the electrical signal, where the electrical signal has dropped to half its initial value. Okay, so we call this the half power point, or we in the log system we call it as the 3 dB point. Why do we call it as the 3 dB point? Because the 0.5 of the power, where it has fallen in the log scale, it will correspond to 3 decibels, right? So this is going to correspond to the electrical 3 dB point, or the frequency at which your output electrical power will be reduced to 3 dB with respect to input power, right? So 0.5 of initial power, right? So I'll write 0.5 of initial power will correspond to the 3 dB point, right? That is where the power now has become, 3 dB or 0.5 less than the initial power, right? So this is what we have done in the electrical system. Now let's see what we can, how we can relate this to the optical system, right? So in the optical system, the 3 dB bandwidth of the optical carrier or bandwidth, we obtain that, and we obtain an increased value for modulation bandwidth. And the reason for this is what we can see in the diagram there, right? So in the optical system, you will always get an inflated or more modulation bandwidth. So let me draw that so you'll be able to understand. So on the x-axis, we will have the current ratio. Okay, so this current ratio will be I out divided by I in. That is the input current divided the output current divided by the input current. You can also draw this in terms of voltage. So this is the current ratio, and this on the x-axis will be the frequency. So let me first draw the electrical point. So if this value is 1, right, the electrical point, and with the frequency it is going to be decreasing. So you would have seen a diagram like this in doing the electronic systems. So this point here over the frequency, and this value here will be 0.5. This value here, sorry, 1 by root 2 will give you 1.707 or 1 by root 2, right? This point here will be your electrical bandwidth. Electrical bandwidth. Okay. Please understand, I have told you here 0.5 of the initial value, right? But we are always interested in the RMS. So 0.5 of the initial value will be 1 by root 2, the RMS value, right? And that 1 by root 2 is 0.707, right? That's why we have noted here the 0.707. So this value 0.707, the RMS value here, this will be the electrical 3 dB point, right? So you'll get the 3 dB point there. In terms of the optical bandwidth, you will always get an inflated point, and that point here will come somewhere here, where you will get an inflated value of 0.5, that is 1 by, right? And this will become the optical 3 dB point, and therefore you can see that the optical bandwidth will be larger than the electrical bandwidth, and because of that we always prefer to use an optical system. So this will be your optical bandwidth. So we'll always get an inflated value of bandwidth when it comes to the electric and the optical bandwidth. Now let's try to understand this, and let's try to compare the electrical and optical bandwidth for an optical communication system, and let's try to have a relation between them. Okay, it's a very important concept. This diagram is very important. This helps you understand that the optical bandwidth is larger than the electrical bandwidth, and therefore we prefer an optical system over an electrical system when it comes to bandwidth. So here we want to establish the relation between the electrical system and the optical system, right? So let us first consider the electrical bandwidth. So we'll consider the electrical bandwidth, that is when the signal is electrical in nature. Okay, so this is easy because we have been dealing with this, right? So here we are interested in the ratio of electrical output power to that of electric input power in decibels, right? So we'll call this ratio of electrical power, so RE, in decibels. So whenever you want to convert to decibels, it will be 10 log to the base 10, right? And this ratio here will be electric power, and this will be at detector. This will be at detector, right? Divided by electric power at source, right? Obviously we want them to be equal, but that's never going to happen, right? Therefore, now putting in the values, so RE in decibels will be 10 log to the base 10. Now this will be nothing but I want to convert this power, right? So I can write this in terms of the current and the resistance. So I'll get I square at the output divided by resistance at the output divided by I square at the input divided by the resistance at the input, right? Obviously, these resistances are going to be constants. Therefore, this decibel value is nothing but proportional to, I'm going to remove the equality sign. This will be proportional to 10 log to the base 10 I out divided by I in the whole square, because we have removed the resistance values there, right? Now, this electrical 3 dB point, this will occur when the ratio of the electric powers is 1. That means when I out divided by I in, the whole square will be half, because it is half power point. Therefore, I out divided by I in, if we remove the square value there, is 1 by root, right? That is what we have used before in drawing that graph, right? So therefore, in the electrical domain, bandwidth is defined as frequency when output current has dropped to 1 by root 2 or 0.707 of input current, right? That is where you define the electrical bandwidth, right? So just to make it clear, so electrical bandwidth, so I'll write this bandwidth electrical is when is frequency or range of frequency when output current has dropped to 1 by root 2 of initial current. Okay, so therefore now if I scroll up to that graph, you will see that we have taken the 1 by root 2, that is 0.707 value, this point which I am darkening, right? That is why we have called this the electrical 3 dB point, right? Now let's see what happens in the optical domain, right? So I'm going to follow the same notation. We have called electrical bandwidth as REdB, right, which is electrical. So for the optical bandwidth, I'm going to call this RO, right? That is the optical bandwidth in decibels, will be nothing but 10 log to the base 10. Again, the definition will be the same. You'll get optical power at detector divided by optical power at source. Again, we would want these to be the same, but that's not going to happen, right? And the difference is this value here is proportional to 10 log to the base 10 of I out divided by I in, because here we are dealing with the optical power, we are not dealing with the electrical power, right? Why is that square not there? Because, okay, this is very important. Why is that square term not there? In the electrical system, there was a square, I out by I in square. But in optical system, you're not having the square because you have a linear, because we have a linear light current relation. Okay, so if I square it, that linearity is going to be lost. So as you increase the current, the the optical output is also going to increase there, right? Therefore, the 3 dB point, unlike the electrical system, is just going to be I out divided by I in, which is going to be half, which was 1 by root 2 in that case, right? Therefore, in the optical domain, your bandwidth is defined as the range of frequency at which output current at which output current at which output current has dropped to uh, input current half value. In the electrical domain, this was 1 by root 2 value, whereas that was a whereas in the optical domain, this is just the half value, right? And this half value in the decibel system will correspond to 6 dB value. 6 dB value, right? So you will come across this relationship also, that 3 dB electrical corresponds to 6 dB optical. 6 dB optical. So optical systems are always going to give us higher value when it corresponded with your optical electrical system. That's why we always want to use the optical systems. Okay, so this is an important concept which we must remember. Okay, so I hope this was clear. Okay, so let us look at one of the problems from the quantum efficiency. Okay, I hope there is no doubt in this. Okay, this is I've not seen a question based on this from VTU question paper, but they always ask you like what is the modulation of the LED or how you can compare the the modulation of the electrical system with that of the optical system. Okay. So we must be very clear on that. Just remember that the optical system will give you a higher bandwidth when compared to the electrical system. That's why we prefer that kind of a system. Okay. So let us take one numerical. We have time for that, and then we'll proceed with the other part of LED, just a small part, followed by laser in the next lecture. Okay. So we are going to follow the same thing for a laser, how it operates. We have already discussed what are the types of the laser, how this amplification and carrier confinement happens in laser. That is very important. It is known as a cavity, a resonant cavity. Then we'll also discuss about the internal quantum efficiency and modulation of a laser. So the structure will be the same. Only thing at the end we will establish that a laser is much better than that of an LED, that to an LED, but it's costly because of certain reasons. Okay. So let's look at this one question. The question is the radiative and non-radiative recombination life. Let me write it. Radiative and non-radiative recombination lifetime of minority carriers in the active region of an LED are 60 nanoseconds and 90 nanoseconds respectively. Question is determine the total carrier recombination lifetime and optical power generated internally if peak emission wavelength is 870 nanometer and drive current is 40 milliampere. Okay. So it's a long question. Let's see what are the parameters which are given and what is it that we need to find. Right. So from the first statement, it says radiative and non-radiative recombination lifetime of the carriers in the active region is 60 and 90 nanoseconds. That means we are given the lifetime and we have defined lifetime as tau. So radiative carriers lifetime is given to us. Non-radiative lifetime is also given to us, and that is nothing but radiative is 60 nanoseconds and non-radiative is 90 nanoseconds. Okay. Then it says determine the total carrier recombination lifetime. Right. So we need to calculate total lifetime, that is tau, that needs to be calculated, and optical power generated internally, that means power internal we want to calculate. We are given the emission wavelength lambda as 870 nanometer and a drive current I as 40 milliamperes. So this is the information which is given to us, and tau and internal power is are the parameters we need to calculate, right? So we know that total recombination lifetime 1 by tau has a relation as 1 by tau r plus 1 by tau n r, right? So we can also write this in the form of tau, or we can leave it as it is. So 1 by tau r will just be 1 by 60 nanoseconds plus 1 by tau nr, which is 1 by 90 nanoseconds, right? So we can take out the nanoseconds as it is common. So you'll have 1 by 60 plus 1 by 90, okay, and you'll have nanoseconds here. Okay. So someone can calculate and let me know what tau you get. I will also calculate. So here
0.02.
yeah, so here you'll get if I add them, this will get 150 into 16 to 90, right? That will be, sorry, 1 by tau, and that's how I've calculated. So I'm getting about 36 nanoseconds. Are you getting that? It is 1 by tau. We only want tau.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
36
36.
nanometers.
Yeah, okay. So we'll get 36 nanoseconds. Okay. Next, we want to calculate the internal power. So I'm just rewriting the equation for internal power. Okay. So internal power is internal quantum efficiency into HCI divided by Q lambda, right? So I is given to us 40 milliamperes. H and C are constants, we know. Q is also a constant. Lambda is also given to us, which is 870 nanometer. We need to calculate this quantum efficiency, right? Internal quantum efficiency. And we know from our derivation that internal quantum efficiency is uh, total lifetime divided by radiative lifetime, right? And we have just calculated the total lifetime tau, right? So internal quantum efficiency will become tau, which we have calculated, which is 36 nanoseconds, divided by tau r, which is the radiative lifetime, and the radiative lifetime is given to us as 60 nanoseconds, right? So now we can plug in that value. So this was just on the side which we have done. So now we can put in that value. So internal power will be 36 nanoseconds divided by 60 nanoseconds. The units will cancel into H, which is 6.6 into 10 raised to negative 34 into 3 into 10 raised to 8 into I, which is 40 milliamperes. So you'll get 40 into 10 raised to negative 3 divided by Q, which is 1.6 into 10 raised to negative 19 into lambda, which is 870 nanometers, which is 870 nanometers. So you'll have 870 into 10 raised to negative 9. Right? So we can calculate this and we'll get our power value. So I'm also calculating. Let me know what answer you get. So we can calculate. We can cancel this nanosecond and nanosecond there. So you get 36 by 60. Just taken all the powers on one side and the other values on the other side.
Sir, 34 into 10 raised to
Yeah, so I am also getting around 34.2 milliwatt.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so it's easy to calculate. Only thing is it takes a lot of values to calculate. That's all. Okay. Okay, so there are more problems of the same type which we can solve tomorrow in the next class.